He's a burden. She forgot to hang up the phone. That's when I stopped being her father. You know that silence after betrayal? It's not loud. It's not screaming. It's just empty. Cold. Like someone shut off the furnace in your soul. I was sitting in my den, reheating meatloaf Ellen used to make from scratch. Mine's dry. No matter how hard I try, it always turns out dry. The phone rang. My daughter's name lit up the screen. Madison. I answered with the usual warmth I'd been trying to keep alive since Ellen passed. Hey, sweetheart. Hey, Dad, she said, voice wrapped in politeness. Just checking on you. You doing okay? Sure, I said, settling into Ellen's old armchair. Dinner and the 6 o'clock news. Living the dream. She laughed, but it sounded tired. Forced. She talked about Phoenix, some digital marketing summit she and her husband Carson were attending. I asked questions, she gave short answers. Then, the usual gotta run, and I heard her shuffle with her purse. She didn't hang up. Her voice came back, not meant for me anymore. He forgot the stove burner on again. It's time, Carson. He's becoming a danger. A burden. I froze. Carson's voice cut through like a knife. We should have done this last year. The housing market's peaking. His place has to be worth, what, $800,000? 9, maybe more, Madison said. We sell, move him into a care facility. Something decent, but not too expensive. We'll still have enough left to finally get that place in Bend with the mountain view. Perfect, Carson replied. And then she laughed. My daughter laughed. I swear, he was just so grateful I called, she said. He has no idea what's coming. The phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just sat there in that quiet house I built with my own hands 25 years ago and stared at the wedding photo on the mantel. Madison was 5 then. Her tiny hands were in Ellen's lap. We were smiling like fools. Back when I thought love was enough to earn loyalty. The clock ticked above the fireplace, Ellen's anniversary gift. The walls seemed to lean in, listening. They were planning my exile like a business transaction. And they weren't even trying to hide it. The house, my house, had become nothing more than a dollar sign to them. And me? I was the leftover furniture. I got up, legs unsteady, and turned on the lamp in the hallway. The light fell on the hardwood floors I installed myself, every plank a memory. The living room still had the burgundy couch where Madison would fall asleep watching cartoons. The same coffee table I built from scrap oak when money was tight. The bay window Ellen had begged for when she dreamed of reading in the sun. I walked to the kitchen, opened the bottom drawer, pulled out the folder. The one Ellen had labeled for rainy days. Receipts, statements, photos. $38,000 in tuition at Oregon State. $26,000 for her wedding. Co-signed car loans. Rent checks when Carson lost his job. Groceries. Insurance. Weekends sacrificed building their deck, painting their nursery, wiring their ceiling fans. I had given them everything, and now they wanted to take the last thing that was mine. I stared at the deed. Name on the title, Franklin D. Mercer my name. Not theirs. Not shared. Not inherited. Mine. Ellen once said, don't give her so much that she forgets who gave it. I should have listened. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, surrounded by the ghost of a family I no longer recognized. Ellen's perfume still faint on the pillow beside mine. Her last words echoing in the room she died in, promise me you won't let them take everything from you. I broke that promise. But not anymore. The next morning, I made a call. Todd Laskin, real estate lawyer. The same man who helped us write our will when Ellen got sick. He remembered me. Mr. Mercer? What can I do for you? I want to talk about selling my house, I said. Quickly, quietly, before my daughter gets back from Phoenix. He didn't ask questions, just scheduled an appointment. I hung up and walked the halls of my home one more time, but I wasn't looking at memories anymore. I was looking at leverage. They thought I was old, weak, easy to manage. But they forgot something crucial. I built this life from the ground up once. And now I was going to tear it down on my own terms. They called it a surprise. But when they came home, the surprise was mine. And the keys didn't work. Tuesday afternoon. Oregon rain. Light but steady, the kind that soaks into your bones if you stand in it long enough. I'd spent the morning at Laskin and More Legal on Franklin Avenue. Their office was inside an old converted post office, all exposed brick and the smell of copier toner. Todd Laskin looked older than I remembered, but his handshake was just as firm. "You're sure about this, Mr. Mercer?" "I'm sure. I want it listed within 48 hours. Cash buyers only. No family discussion. No delays." Todd nodded and handed me a folder. Inside was everything: listing agreement, disclosure forms, notarized paperwork. I'd already taken the liberty of gathering utility records and receipts, 25 years worth. Ellen used to joke that I kept better records than the IRS. Todd skimmed through the documents, pausing only once. "You're listing below market value. Deliberately. I don't want this dragging out. I want them back from their trip, standing in the driveway, confused, holding bags and realizing the keys don't fit." He didn't smile, but I saw the understanding in his eyes. Understood. By Wednesday afternoon, the house was listed. By Thursday noon, I had 2 offers, both cash, both above asking. I chose the first one. A woman named Grace Dillard. Mid-40s, single mother, school librarian. Wanted to move closer to her parents in West Salem. She walked through the place once, then sent her offer that night. She said it reminded her of the house she grew up in. I signed the acceptance Friday morning. It was done. Just like that, 25 years of walls, windows, and whispers gone. But not without purpose. I didn't leave immediately. I spent that final day staging the house. I removed Ellen's photo from the mantel, tucked it gently into a wooden box lined with cloth, packed up the books she used to read, took the quilt from our bed, the one her mother had made us as a wedding gift, folded it with care. But I left the furniture. Why? Because I knew Madison and Carson would come back early, 2 days earlier than expected. Todd told me the closing paperwork would finalize Monday. I had until Sunday night to disappear. That gave me a small window for revenge, the quiet kind, the kind that lets them feel everything. Saturday night, I checked into a little cabin on the edge of Silverton. 1 bedroom, kitchenette, and a porch that faced the forest. It smelled like pine and old stories. At 11:52 p.m., my phone buzzed. Madison. I let it ring. At 12:06 a.m., another call, this time from Carson. I stared at his name on the screen until it faded. I imagined them stepping onto the porch, fumbling with a key. Nothing. Trying the garage code. Nope. Finding the note I taped to the door, just above the welcome mat. This home is no longer yours to enter. Any attempt to do so will be considered trespassing. Best of luck. Dad, I don't know who screamed first. I imagine it was Carson. But I do know what happened next because they started calling nonstop. 7 calls in 10 minutes. Then messages. Dad, what's going on? Franklin, this isn't funny. Where are you? Why is there a sold sign in the yard? Call me back. No. I didn't reply. I was on the porch, sipping black coffee, the sky just beginning to hint at sunrise through the evergreens. Birds chirped. A light breeze moved the trees. And for the first time in years, I felt something like peace. But I also knew Carson wouldn't take this lying down. He wasn't built for humiliation, especially not public humiliation. So I prepared. On Sunday morning, I visited my bank and made some quiet changes. I moved every cent from my main account into a new one, a separate credit union under my name only. Canceled the old cards. Revoked any power of attorney Madison once had, just in case. Then I called my new lawyer, not Todd, but a different kind. Martla Cook, former estate litigator turned personal rights specialist. I told her everything. They'll try to claim I'm unstable, I said. That I need help managing my finances. And is there any reason they'd succeed in that claim? She asked. None. I passed my last full physical 3 months ago. Mental capacity? Still sharp. Good, she said. Then let's make sure you stay protected. She filed paperwork for legal firewalling. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to ensure I had total financial independence. Just enough to make sure if they tried anything, I'd know. And something told me they would. That evening, I finally turned my phone back on. 23 missed calls, 14 texts, 2 voicemails. I opened the first one from Madison. Dad, we need to talk. This can't be how you treat your family. You blindsided us. Carson's furious. Please call me. I didn't. Instead, I opened my laptop, logged into the Oregon County Recorder's site, and stared at the updated record. Title: Grace Dillard, previous owner, Franklin D. Mercer. I looked at Ellen's photo on the side table of the cabin. Her soft smile caught forever in a frame we bought on our anniversary trip to Crater Lake. You always protected everyone else, she used to say. Just promise me you'll protect yourself when it counts. Well, Ellen, it counts now. And I'm not done. They thought I'd roll over. Instead, I made a phone call. And suddenly, Carson's job wasn't so stable anymore. Monday morning came with fog clinging low over the trees. I made myself eggs in the tiny cabin kitchen and waited for the sun to burn through the mist, the same way I was waiting for the full weight of my daughter's panic to hit. It didn't take long. 10:14 a.m., a knock at the door. I looked through the curtain. Madison. Alone. Hair in a loose bun. No makeup. Red-rimmed eyes. She looked more like the teenager I used to drive to school than the corporate adult who'd planned my removal like a budget cut. I opened the door slowly but didn't step aside. Dad, please. Her voice cracked on the second word. I don't know what's happening. Carson's furious. You forgot to hang up the phone, I said. That's what happened. She blinked. Her lips parted like she was about to lie, then shut again. Her eyes dropped to the porch boards. We were just worried. No, I said. You were calculating. There's a difference. Silence stretched between us like a rope ready to snap. Dad, we didn't mean for it to sound that way. But it did. And it wasn't just talk, was it? She said nothing. I stepped outside, pulling the door closed behind me. You went to my house. You saw the note. You saw the sold sign. And now you're here to ask for what exactly? She looked up at me then. And there it was, not guilt. Not sadness. Fear. Carson thinks you overreacted. That maybe you're confused. He wants to file for guardianship. Just temporary, he says. Until things are settled. There it was. The real reason she'd come without him. Because he'd already started his move. I laughed once, a short, bitter sound. Guardianship? He's welcome to try. But he'll have a hard time explaining that to the ethics board at his firm. Her face paled. What are you talking about? I know about the offshore account, I said. The one registered in Belize. The one he used to funnel that consulting bonus 2 years ago. She shook her head, stammering, Dad, what do you think I didn't do my homework? I interrupted. You think I didn't know what kind of man Carson was? Truth was, I hadn't known. Not until last week. But since then, I'd made calls. Reached out to old contacts from my contracting years. Friends in real estate, construction, even one who now handled forensic accounting for estate disputes. Carson had skeletons. And now one of them was in a file I handed to a compliance officer this morning. I didn't do it to ruin him, I said. I did it to protect myself. He crossed a line, and he's going to learn what that costs. Madison covered her mouth with both hands. I loved you, I said quietly. Every day, even when you forgot, even when you laughed at me behind my back. She dropped her hands. I was scared, okay? Carson lost 2 deals in a row. The house we wanted slipped through. The stress, I worked night shifts in my 60s so you could have a debt-free college degree. I still have the invoices from your wedding. $31,812. And you call stress what I call life. Tears welled up in her eyes. But I didn't reach out. Not this time. I don't hate you, Maddie. But I see you now. And seeing you clearly hurts more than hating ever could. She took a step forward. I'm not coming back with you, I said. And I'm not giving Carson a dime. I sold that house for my peace, not your profit. She froze in place, fists clenched. He'll go after you, Dad. You don't know him like I do. No, I said. You don't know me. Not anymore. And with that, I walked back inside and closed the door. She didn't knock again. Not that day. But that evening, something changed. At 6:12 p.m., my phone buzzed with an alert. A news bulletin from a local business paper. Prominent tech firm reviews ethics complaint against advisor Carson Bell.
I stared at the screen until it dimmed. He'd been warned. Now I was waiting for his response. It came the next morning. 2 words, sent in all caps from an unfamiliar number. You'll regret this. I smiled. Because if Carson thought this was revenge, he hadn't seen anything yet. This wasn't anger. It was arithmetic. And I still had a few debts left
To settle. He wanted control. So I took his name and made sure it meant nothing anymore. Tuesday started with a knock. Not Madison. Not Carson. Courier. He handed me a thick manila envelope and a clipboard. Return address. Carson's law firm in Portland. I didn't sign right away. What's this? Legal notice. Certified. Requires acknowledgement. I signed. He left. I sat down at the cabin's little table, steam rising from my coffee, the smell of wet forest drifting in through the open window. I opened the envelope slowly. Inside, a formal petition for emergency guardianship, filed by Carson Bell, alleging cognitive decline, memory loss, episodes of disorientation, a statement from some second-rate doctor I'd never met, all of it dressed in professional language but soaked in desperation. They were accelerating. Carson was playing his last card. He wanted control of my finances, to claim I wasn't fit to manage my own money. Problem was, he was too late. Thanks to Marla Cook, my lawyer, every asset had already been restructured. My accounts frozen to outside access. Powers of attorney revoked. A forensic defense already filed in the county court. He was swinging wildly. And missing. But I wasn't. That afternoon, I met with a woman named Shelby Crane. She ran a reputation management firm out of Eugene. Small operation. Quiet clientele. The kind of place men like Carson never think to worry about until they should. I showed her what I had, the offshore account. The consulting fees paid through an LLC registered in a P.O. box in Nevada. The email trail, courtesy of a whistleblower inside his firm. She read everything without a word. Then finally, how far do you want this to go, Mr. Mercer? As far as it takes for him to stop. I want the mask off. I want people to see what's behind that handshake and suit. She nodded once. Then let's get to work. By Thursday morning, 2 things had happened. 1, an internal review had been launched at Carson's company. 2, his LinkedIn bio quietly changed from senior legal consultant to simply attorney. A soft demotion. I hadn't even gotten started. That same day, I sent a letter to the Oregon Bar Association. It wasn't an official complaint. Not yet. But it was enough to trigger an ethics inquiry into Carson's conduct related to financial exploitation. Let them dig. I'd already handed them the shovel. Then I turned my attention to something more personal. See, I still had something Carson didn't know about. Something old. Something forgotten. When Carson married Madison, I gifted them the name. Bell and Mercer Renovations. A side project we'd started on paper, one I'd funded and registered under both our names, back when Carson was trying to build something of his own. He never did anything with it. But I kept it alive. Quietly. Legally. Now, I rebranded it. I registered a complaint against Carson Bell for unauthorized use of branding in business dealings. Then I made a website, bellandmercertruth.com. It wasn't flashy. Just a simple page. One headline, the truth behind the name, what Carson Bell doesn't want you to know. Below it, financial docs, screenshots, redacted testimony. All legal, all truthful. Just enough to draw blood without drawing lawsuits. And then I did what any old man with time and a grudge does best. I shared it. Quietly. Strategically. A few burner Facebook accounts. Reddit threads. LinkedIn groups. I never mentioned myself. I let the story breathe. That Friday evening, my phone buzzed again. Blocked number. I picked up. Silence at first. Then Carson's voice, low and cracking. You destroyed everything. No, I said. You did. I just finally stopped protecting you from yourself. You're an old man with a laptop. And you're a fraud with a shrinking circle. Click. He hung up. But I knew it wasn't over. Because men like Carson don't lose gracefully. They lash out. And sure enough, the next morning, I got an email from Madison. He's talking about suing you for defamation. He's unraveling, Dad. I don't even know who he is anymore. Please, call me. I stared at her words. And for the first time since all this began, I felt something shift. Not anger, not sadness. Pity. For her. For the life she'd chosen. For the war she helped start, but was now watching burn everything she thought was hers. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the window. Let the forest wind blow in. Then I picked up Ellen's photo from the nightstand and whispered, "You were right. I waited too long. But I'm here now. And I wasn't done yet." He tried to bury the fire. But he forgot I lit it. And now it's burning straight through his life. Monday morning came with rain again. Cold, sideways, Oregon rain. I was sitting at the diner in Silverton, same booth Ellen and I used to share on Sundays after church. Booth by the window. Bacon, eggs, black coffee. A routine older than Carson's career. The waitress, Dana, handed me the local paper without asking. Front page, ethics investigation launched against local legal advisor. No names. But the photo was clear as day. Carson, stepping out of a building with his hand up like he was swatting flies. The same forced smile he wore at his wedding. The one that never reached his eyes. I folded the paper, took a sip of coffee, and watched the raindrops slide down the window like they were trying to escape. He was unraveling. And I hadn't even touched the legal nuke I was holding. See, Carson thought he was smart. But in every corner-cutting scheme, there's always one person who keeps receipts. In this case, a junior associate he'd chewed out in front of the entire office back in March. A kid named Ethan. Ethan found me through a burner email I'd posted on one of the legal forums. Said he admired how I was handling things. Said he had screenshots. Internal messages. PDF exports of doctored invoices Carson used for billing consultation hours that never existed. I forwarded everything to Marla. She didn't respond right away. But when she did, her message was just one line. "We have enough to formally request a bar suspension." That afternoon, I drove into town and mailed the packet myself. It felt final, like I just pulled the last pin from a grenade. But revenge stories, real ones, don't give you clean endings. Because that night, around 10:30, my cabin phone rang. Not my cell, the cabin landline. A number almost no one had. I let it ring, then answered. "Mr. Mercer," a voice said. "Male. Raspy. Off. You need to back off. You've made your point. Who is this?" "That's not important. Just know if you keep digging into Carson's business, you're going to find more than paperwork." Silence. Then the click. I hung up and sat there a moment, the line humming in my ear even after it was dead. He crossed another line. Threats now. He was scared, which meant I was close. I stepped out onto the porch, letting the cold slap my face. The forest smelled of rain and wood smoke. Somewhere out there, someone thought I'd fold. Thought I'd go back into the shadows like an obedient old man. But I didn't spend a lifetime building a home, a family, and a legacy to let it rot in Carson Bell's hands. No, I went back inside and opened a locked drawer in my suitcase. Inside, a safety deposit key. Box number 113. Stored in a vault back in Eugene was every single original document from Bell and Mercer. Originals. Signatures. Timestamps. The ones that proved I had full ownership of the business name. That Carson had falsified authorization in more than one project. And attached to that file? A clause, buried in the registration agreement, added by me. If Carson Bell was ever found to be involved in financial misconduct, the name Bell and Mercer would legally revert to sole use by the other party. Me. And I had just activated it. Marla filed the paperwork that same week. By Thursday, Carson's firm had taken down every mention of the brand. His LinkedIn went blank. His company profile? Removed. He was still technically employed, but stripped. No clients. No clout. No leverage. Madison called again. Twice. No voicemail. Just her name blinking on the screen like a warning. I didn't answer, but I could feel her slipping. Between her husband's collapse and my silence, she was drifting in a storm she helped stir up. And I'd be lying if I said it didn't ache, somewhere deep, behind all the armor. That night, I sat with Ellen's old journal in my lap. Flipped to a page she wrote after Madison's wedding. Frank still pays for everything. I wish he wouldn't. I wish he'd let her fall a little. Feel what it's like to climb on her own. I hadn't listened. Not then. But I was listening now. They wanted me to burn quietly. Instead, I burned the whole damn blueprint they built their lives on. And I wasn't finished yet. She asked, "Do you still love me?" I answered the way she never expected. With silence. The quiet in the cabin was different now. Not peaceful. Not tense. Final. I stood at the kitchen window, watching fog roll in like a curtain. Everything beyond it, blurred, ghostly quiet. It reminded me of the distance between who Madison used to be and the woman who married Carson Bell. The woman who called me a burden. The knock came mid-morning. I knew it was her before I even opened the door. She stood there in a raincoat, hair pulled back, holding a paper coffee cup like a peace offering. "Hi, Dad." Her voice was soft. No mascara. No jewelry. Just her and a look in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. I didn't say a word. She stepped forward slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. "I'm not here to fight," she said. "I just want to talk." I let the door swing open wider. She stepped in, the wooden floor creaking beneath her soaked boots. She looked around at the small table, the single chair, the worn couch. "You really live like this now?" I nodded. "It's simple. Quiet. Nobody asks me for anything." Her shoulders sink. She sat. I poured her coffee. Black. Like mine. She used to hate it that way. Now? She didn't even flinch. "I messed up," she said, looking at her cup. "Carson, he's not who I thought he was." Or maybe I always knew, but ignored it. I leaned against the counter. She looked up. Her voice cracked. "I didn't come for money or the house or anything. I wanted to remember who I used to be, who you were to me." I didn't respond, because something in her tone scared me more than any threat Carson ever made. Regret. She wiped her cheek quickly. "When Mom died, I think something in me went cold. Carson filled the space. He gave orders, made plans, controlled things. I thought that was security. I thought I was being smart. You thought you were being safe," I said. "But safety without love is just a prison with nicer walls." She swallowed hard. "I didn't come here to beg," she said. "But I need you to know. I miss you. Not your money. Not your help. Just you." And then she said it. The question I wasn't ready for. "Do you still love me?" I looked at her, the girl I once carried on my shoulders during the 4th of July parade. The teenager I waited up for when she missed curfew. The woman who'd called me a burden. But she wasn't any of those things now. She was someone I didn't quite recognize, and maybe never fully would again. So I gave her the only honest answer I could. Silence. No anger. No forgiveness. Just silence. She stood slowly. Her hands shook. "I get it," she whispered. "I deserve that." She turned toward the door. But before she left, I spoke. "You're not the only one who lost something, Madison. But you're the only one who gave it away willingly." She didn't look back. The door closed behind her like the end of a book I never asked to read. That night, I drove. I needed air. A sky wider than the grief. A space Ellen might have walked if she were still alive. I parked at the overlook west of town. The one she loved. The one we used to visit in autumn when the maples turned gold. I sat on the hood of the truck and watched the stars emerge. Cold, sharp, distant. And then I remembered something Ellen once said. Revenge makes sense, but it rarely gives you the thing you lost. She was right. But this wasn't about getting anything back anymore. It was about ending it. And I knew what I had to do next. Carson thought the worst was behind him. But I'd been holding one more card, one he never saw coming. And tomorrow? Tomorrow I was going to play it. They thought I wanted revenge. I didn't. I wanted the truth to echo louder than their lies. It happened on a Wednesday. A clear, windless morning, the kind that fools you into thinking the worst is over. I sat in my truck outside the courthouse, engine idling. Across the street, Carson stood on the steps, straightening his tie, flanked by two suited colleagues. His face was pale, his smile hollow. He was about to enter the disciplinary hearing with the Oregon Bar Association. The official complaint had gone through. The evidence was irrefutable. The offshore account, the falsified consulting invoices, the financial exploitation of a senior relative, me. And now it wasn't whispers. It was record. I didn't walk into that hearing. I didn't need to. Instead, I watched from the window of a second-story cafe, sipping coffee from a chipped mug and listening to a clerk on her break mutter to her coworker, "That's Carson Bell, right? Heard he's under investigation. Something about stealing from his father-in-law. Good." Word was traveling. Later that day, Marla called. "Preliminary rulings in," she said. "They suspended his license pending full investigation. No courtroom appearances. No client meetings. He's been officially benched." I didn't gloat. I didn't cheer. I just breathed. That night, Carson called. Again. Blocked number. I let it ring. Then I picked up, not because I owed him anything, but because he needed to hear it from me. "You win," he said, voice hoarse. "You happy now?" "No," I said quietly. "But I'm finished." A pause. "You ruined my life." "No," I said again. "You did that." I just turned on the lights. He laughed bitterly. "Madison left me, you know. Packed up and moved in with her cousin. Said she needs time to think." I said nothing. "You tore this family apart." "No, Carson," I said, finally letting the anger sharpen my voice. "You tore it apart when you stood in my living room, drank my beer, and called my home yours. When you tried to steal from a man who fed you, clothed you, paid your mortgage. That's when you lost this family." Silence. Then a whisper. "What now?" I let the question hang. Let him feel it. Then I answered. "Now? You rebuild. If you can." Click. I turned off the phone. That night, I walked the edge of the Silverton woods, the wind cold against my neck. The trees swayed above me like old men in conversation. I thought about Ellen, about the life we built, about the daughter we raised. And I wondered, not for the first time, whether this was justice or just the only choice left. But there was still one thing unfinished. One last signature. One last envelope. See, I'd taken the profits from the house sale, every last dollar, and divided them 3 ways. A third went to a women's shelter Ellen used to donate to. A third went to Grace Dillard, the single mom who'd bought my house. Quietly, anonymously, just to check with a note, for repairs, for beginnings. And the last third? That stayed with me, because one day I'll need help too. Real help. Not from blood. Not from people who smile while planning your erasure, but from someone who sees me not as an asset, not as a burden, but as a man. And I'll pay for it with my own damn money. Not theirs. Not ever again. She asked if I'd come home. I told her I already was. And then I closed the door. It ended not with sirens, not with shouting, not with a dramatic courtroom scene. It ended on a park bench. Madison found me there on a Sunday morning, sitting in the same spot where I used to bring her for ice cream when she was 5. The same bench Ellen and I would sit on while she played in the sand, her laughter rising above the rustle of the leaves. I saw her approach through the branches. Slower this time. Smaller. Like she was walking uphill with a weight she'd never carried before. "Hi, Dad." Madison. She sat down beside me. Didn't speak for a while. Just watched the joggers pass, the kids on scooters, a golden retriever pulling an old man toward the duck pond. "I signed the divorce papers," she said finally. I nodded. He pled guilty. Reduced charges. Suspended sentence. Ethics violations. Permanent disbarment. He's finished. Another nod. I lost everything. "Not everything," I said. She looked at me. "I still have you, right?" The wind stirred. And for a moment, I thought I might say yes. Thought I might tell her that everything could go back. That if she just cried enough or looked sorry enough, we could pretend it didn't happen. But pretending is how this all started. So I looked straight ahead and said, "You have my forgiveness, but not my trust." She blinked. "I don't hate you," I added, "but I'm done building bridges for people who only cross them to rob me. Tears welled up, but she didn't let them fall. "I don't expect anything," she whispered. I wanted you to know. I see it now. All of it. What I became. What I let him turn me into. I didn't come to fix things. I came to tell you I'm sorry." I stood. So did she. "Will I ever see you again?" she asked. "I don't know." She nodded, as if that was the most honest gift I could have given her. I walked away. Didn't look back. Not this time. That night, I returned to the cabin, lit the fireplace, pulled out Ellen's photo and set it on the mantel. I'd been angry for a long time, and grief wears that anger like a mask long after the tears dry up. But now I had something better than rage. I had peace. The next morning, I opened the small journal I kept for financial notes and wrote a new entry, Monday, 7:48 a.m. No deaths, no calls, just the sound of birds and my own damn breath. That's freedom. Then I closed the book, poured my coffee, and stepped out onto the porch, barefoot, as the sun cut through the trees like a promise I hadn't broken yet. And that's where I'll be. If you ever come looking, not waiting, not hoping, just living, on my own terms. Thank you for watching.